So in 2006, Daryl Gussin became integrally involved in the Razorcake fanzine, where he is currently the managing editor. His writing revolves around the honest, bittersweet, and ultimately triumphant aspects of counterculture and its flavorful inhabitants. The heartbreak, the implosions, and the defiant victories. Community over commercialism, create and destroy. And Daryl today will be joined in conversation with local zinester, Lindsay Anderson. So our interviewer, Lindsay, is a prolific zine maker and self-publisher based here in Jacksonville, Florida. And since 2013, Lindsay has developed a long-running zine project, and she has helped to organize the annual Duval Comic and Zine Fest that we have here with the library at Maine. And she has recently launched a new quarterly zine, Mischief on the River. She's passionate about creating from existing resources and making spaces for others to develop and showcase their own works. So, Lindsay, I will leave it to you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the library. Thanks for spending your Saturday afternoon with us. It's my pleasure to introduce Daryl Gussin.
Hello.
Daryl is visiting us from LA, so he's come quite a ways to be here with us.
This is true.
He is, as mentioned, he's the current editor of Razorcake magazine. It's a zine that has been around since 2001 out of LA. And how did you start? How did you get involved with Razorcake? When did that start?
I got involved in the summer of 2005, so it had already been around for about 4 years. I had been reading it for about 3 years. In 2004, I met the editor at a show just because I was a fan of the magazine, and we hit it off. We talked about music. We had a lot of common ideas and common interests, and in 2006, he said, I was looking for a job. I was recently back in LA and looking for work. And he said, well, I can pay you a couple bucks an hour if you come in and help out until you find a job. And I kind of just felt like I should just keep doing that. And that was my job. And that's 18 years later now.
18 years later, and it's a monthly.
Once every 2 months.
Oh, okay. So it's okay. That's incredible. And you have how far is your reach? Where is the distribution at?
We'll ship anywhere that people will pay for it to go. Like to the extent of the US Postal Service is our reach.
Yeah. So, what do you think is the furthest country that you're sending Razorcake out to?
They go all over the world.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, at a certain point, you just loop back around.
Yeah. And I guess let's talk about what Razorcake is, what is, covered in Razorcake. Is it music, movies?
Right. So obviously, the most common denominator is punk music, DIY punk music, music that is, for the sake of self-expression over profits. But I like to focus on more just the storytelling aspects of it and getting people's stories. The interviews are just, sharing the human experience with the main undercurrent being human experiences that have been heavily affected by punk music. But even this issue that has been randomly placed here that I had nothing to do with is the punks and mental health issue, where it's an interview with 5 different people who are playing bands, do zines, are punk people, and have a story have struggled with mental health and have like a story that is a positive one.
Do you think that you drive some of the ideas of what you'd like to see in your upcoming issues as the editor, or are you more open to other people bringing you ideas as well?
Every issue is a group effort. So I do the zine with Todd Taylor. He's one of the founders. And one of us or both of us will do the interview that might be on the cover, but then the rest of the interviews and articles are just from contributors all around the country and world who had no idea who's going to be on the cover. No one knows who's going to be on the cover except for me, Todd, and whoever designs it.
I was going to ask you about the covers actually, because they're very striking. So can you talk a little bit about what the process is for choosing covers?
Like choosing who goes on the cover?
Yeah, the design and who goes on the cover.
So, it's got to be a band we believe in. It's got to be a band that we just absolutely love and think deserves to be presented. They're usually not very popular. Maybe not most of the time, not even like the most popular band in the issue. But why does a popular band need more popularity? Like it's great to promote like a younger band that is getting overlooked and just say, because it may be like someone picks up an issue and that's the one new band they'll check out. So we're say, hey, this is Crisis Actor. Check them out. We think they're cool. And then we have like a rote, so there's 6 issues a year. Right now we have a pretty good stable of 6 graphic designers, and we just go, it's just an order. So we go, Jason, Salpy, Jesse, and it's just like, all right, where are we at now? Okay, Salpy's doing this one.
So you have an idea for who's going to be on the cover and you kind of give them direction?
Yeah, so it will be, we'll give them like all the wording and we'll give them the photo and just say, make it good.
Well, they do a great job.
Yeah.
What do you think is one of the most important ingredients to the longevity of Razorcake?
I mean, it's just been about staying creative. There's been like a lot of big changes that kind of don't really exist in publishing except for us. So, and it's just a matter of sitting there and stressing out about money and being like, we have to think of something or we're going to be out of business. And I mean, that's just being creative, having a creative mind and working out of necessity and surviving.
Yeah, it's an incredible feat to continue something in print after the internet has come through
Right.
and after COVID for sure. Can you talk about some maybe uncomfortable decisions that you've had to make as an editor to keep it going?
Uncomfortable. I mean, it's been, you could say there's been like a compromise in my personal finances. That's kind of a big one.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had to front the bill.
I lived
when
in a
you needed-
garage for a couple of years. It was, $100 a month for rents, and
Yeah.
luckily I now live in a house.
Well,
I have a
congratulations.
bedroom. It's all right. There's no black widows.
That was going to be one of my next question is being an editor for a magazine like this, and it must have changed some of your daily habits. Do you see what are some major habits that you find yourself making now that you didn't expect to at the beginning?
Well, I mean, I'm, going into my 40s and still actively going to shows, still seeking out new bands. And part of that is, trying to stay up with what's going on. And I have a lot of friends who, don't really don't do that. And that could very easily have been me. But I'm still like, I still strive to be plugged into the scene in Los Angeles and outside of Los Angeles.
Sure, sure. Well, I'm sure they appreciate it. It's needed, for the underground, for somebody like you to continue doing the work that you're doing and living in a garage when it's necessary.
Hopefully, I will not be back in the garage.
Has Razorcake ever had to maneuver through legal issues?
Um, One time we spelled a band's name wrong on the cover, and they sent us like a joke cease and desist, but that's probably the closest. Yeah, we did spell a band's name wrong on the cover of the magazine.
Okay, so you haven't had anybody that didn't like the way that they were portrayed?
Uh, yeah, things are starting to come back to me. There was a record review that it was like the guitarist's dad was a lawyer or something. We were just like, you can't sue us over a record review. Like, what? But I've been like physically threatened with violence for my record reviews and stuff. Like, it's gotten pretty weird at times.
So you obviously don't write your reviews based on just trying to please people. What's what your actual opinion is?
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's all about honesty. This is all about honesty.
Right. I struggle as a zine maker myself. Like if I don't like something, do I print it or not? So I think that that's really interesting that you run with the print, even, with your opinion, and it's a true criticism and a review.
Yeah, I mean, the two examples that I gave you, if I were to bore everyone with like the details of them, it's these are not things worth getting upset about. Like these are people overreacting and being childish. But as far as reviewing stuff, I don't really write bad reviews. Well, like I think that's a pretty cruel thing to do to someone who put a lot of work and effort into releasing something out into the world. Like unless something is like hateful and mean, then but you just like say what it is, and you're just being honest about what it is. But you know, as a musician myself, I put a lot of work into releases and been discarded, and I don't think that's a fair thing to do to someone. There's good qualities about pretty much everything, and you could also balance it out with the good and the bad. But to like totally slam something is not polite
Right.
or nice.
Yeah, you give space to the things that you like.
Yeah,
That's great. Is there anybody that you've always wanted to interview but haven't been able to nail down yet?
there's been a couple people that I thought would have been sure things. That I was just told they weren't interested. Like there's an old LA punk lady from the 70s named Patricia Morrison. She played in The Bags and she played in Legal Weapon, and then she even played in she moved to London and played in Sisters of Mercy, and she's married to the lead singer of The Damned and played in The Damned, and she just has this very unique, amazing arc to her musical career. And I was doing research and really excited about it and reached out to a mutual friend, and she got back to me. She said, "Nah, she's not interested." And I was like, "Dang," because I thought I was like, I as soon as I got that idea to interview Patricia Morrison, I was just like so pumped.
Well, on the other side of that same coin, is there anybody that you went for and you thought for sure they would turn you down and they approved an interview with you?
Yeah, Guy from Rites of Spring and Fugazi. That's like my favorite interview I've ever done, and I just like blindly emailed um, the record label that he used to release music on, and then he contacted me and said he was interested. And he's not really one who does interviews very often. And even in the interview, we were talking about documentaries and interviews, and he said something to the effect of, "I don't do interviews because I don't trust my personal historicization, and honestly, I am not even sure why I agreed to do this interview." And I was just like, "Okay, well, I'm glad you did agree to do it, because that was a good one for me."
Can you give us a sneak peek into any maybe upcoming interviews that you're excited about or working on?
Yeah. I mean, I there's an interview coming out with a Canadian band called Homefront, which is just a bizarre band that mixes various styles of music that you wouldn't really think fit well, and they're pretty popular. So I wasn't even sure if they'd want to do it, but the guy responded, and we had a really long conversation. He was really eager to tell his story, and usually when I interview bands, they have to be more than a band. Like I like to interview bands that are involved in like community projects, have like uh, uh something that's like really sets them apart rather than being like, I'm just a person who sings songs and plays guitar. Like that's kind of boring to me. But with Homefront, I just thought they were such a weird band. I was like, I gotta know how this happened. I just gotta know. And it was a good conversation.
How do you stay abreast of interesting bands or artists that would be interesting to you? Is it just yourself, or do you have other people that submit ideas to you?
I mean, people will send stuff in for review. Like everything that gets reviewed, like the record label send it in. So, I mean, multiple times a week, I'm going to the post office and bringing home boxes of records and opening them up and seeing new stuff. But I saw a video of Homefront on like Instagram, and I was like, oh wow, people really like this band. I should check it out.
Have you well, I assume that Razorcake, and please, correct me if I'm wrong, Razorcake is funded by advertising and subscriptions.
Right.
Have you had any advertisers that you've had to turn down?
Um, Probably. You know, not as much as you would think, though. Um, no, yeah, not really.
Okay, so there's not like a big named brand that you think doesn't need to be in Razorcake or
Like, um, I don't know if advertising is a good business move for these people who advertise. Like, a lot of them do it because they want to support. They believe in the project, and so they'll pay $40 for an ad, and like I don't know if they're making that $40 back, but they know that advertising is crucial. And I'm sure they also like seeing their ad in the magazine, but um, I think a business that we would turn down is probably so business minded that they wouldn't advertise in the first place.
right? They probably don't even think about Razorcake for advertising, huh?
Right.
When it comes time for you to leave Razorcake for whatever reason,
I don't want to have this conversation.
well, I'm interested to know what kind of person you would want to see succeed you.
I don't know if that's gonna happen. Like, yeah, I don't. That's not really. I mean, sure, I could be replaced by someone. That's fine, but we're not planning that future for this magazine at the moment.
Sure, sure. What do you think you would be doing if you didn't get involved with Razorcake?
I don't know, doing a lot of library talks, maybe workshops down in the basements, stuff like that.
Do you ever get on social media and read your comment section?
The razor in like the Razorcake.
Yeah, public opinion.
Why is it bad?
I don't know. I'm sure there's mixed reviews.
I, for the most part, do not read comment sections. Um, Sometimes we'll post something that may be kind of sensitive, and I'll like monitor it, make sure no one's like saying anything hateful in the comment section. I would just like block them and delete it as before anyone saw it. Uh, but for the most part, can you couldn't pay me enough to read comment sections and anything. I think that's a terrible place for the human mind to be.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I think it was Gertrude Stein that said an audience is nice to have, but never should be required for your work.
Yeah,
So now that you're on the road
right.
doing your poetry readings, how do you balance what you need to do for Razorcake while you're on the road with us?
Well, so the magazine comes out once every 2 months. This is an 8-week cycle that at this point is kind of just like ingrained in my brain. Like I've done this 8-week cycle so many times that I know everything that needs to happen every single week for 8 weeks. So, a month leading up to when I know I'm going to be out of town, I'm working extra to prep for that. And, the week after I get home, I have to go back and do what I didn't do. That's why I'm here right now, because we just got the new issue out. And so there's like a 2-week period between when the issue goes out and when I have to start like getting on people for advertising in the next issue, that I can like sort of not be in the loop. But I'm still answering emails like all day, every day from my phone.
Your success, or the person that you took over Razorcake from, did they help guide you into what this process would be, or was it something that you had to kind of find on your own?
It wasn't that. It wasn't like it wasn't that clean of a cut. I don't think there really was a me before me. Uh, it was like a real like different period. I don't know. There was no one trained me like and I didn't replace anyone like that.
Can you talk more about that 8-week process you're talking about? You mentioned you have 2 weeks for advertising. What about the other 4?
Uh,
6.
so it's like, all right. So at the end of the second week, the issue goes out. So we'll call the following week, week 1. There's the 2-week buffer that we're in right now. When I get back, I have a week of ads, and then I do record reviews, and then I do columns, and then I do proofing. I feel like I'm losing weeks too quick. I don't, this is, I need a piece of paper for this.
Do you use, okay, your record reviews, and you mentioned that you have a couple of weeks or your week for your record reviews. Do you ever get these moments where like you just feel like writing a lot of reviews and then you have them stored like
I
like
probably
in your
should have done
arsenal?
that, but I didn't do that this rotation. I gotta
Yeah.
like hop on those right when I get home.
Okay, so how can people submit to you? Is it information within Razorcake?
Yeah, we have a form on our website. It's an open submission policy. People contact and they say, "Hey, I want to interview this band," and I send them the protocols and the style conventions. And this is literally anyone in the world could do this. Anyone could contact us and say they want to do this. Um, and people do. And that's how people get involved because they have a drive in them to be a part of this.
Yeah, that's incredible that you give that opportunity to people. Your advertisers, I noticed when I was reading through a couple of issues that you give a stage for people that advertise for very little funds. Can you
Right.
talk about that that gamut from the smallest to the largest in advertising that's available in Razorcake?
So I mean, our one of our core goals is keeping everything affordable. Like financial inaccessibility is a a huge gate in this world. And so that's why we don't really ever want to raise our advertising rates because we want people who don't make a lot of money to be able to advertise. We don't want to increase our subscription rates because that's just, taking out a whole swath of people who can afford to subscribe. And so, yeah, for $20 a month, you can have an ad in every issue. And that's, yeah, I mean, $20 is $20, but you know, that's as flexible as we can get to like meet people wherever they are.
Let's talk about your tour that you're on right now.
Okay.
So you're not on tour for Razorcake
Right.
specifically.
No.
Okay, tell us about your project that you're on tour for right now.
So on top of writing about subculture and stuff, I also write poetry and I'm touring across the country for 2 weeks with James Norman. Um, and we're just reading poetry in different places and meeting new people and hearing other poets. And I self-publish all my poetry that I print out at Razorcake. And um, I don't know. It's a great way to travel. It's really the only way I like to travel. I'm not really a vacation type person.
Right. And you used to tour with bands.
Yeah,
You're a musician.
for many years, yeah.
Yeah. What kind of instruments do you play?
I could play bass and I could play guitar and I've played both in various bands over the years and that's kind of everything I'm doing with this poetry tour is just stuff that I learned by touring with bands for, 15 years straight.
Do you prefer traveling with bands or do you prefer traveling with poets?
At this point in my life, I have no desire to travel in a band. I even did a poetry reading tour earlier this year, completely by myself, just because I just couldn't even fathom the idea of touring with anyone anymore. But that was a mistake. That was kind of grueling.
Thinking back about the way COVID has changed the world, have you noticed any major changes that are positive for Razorcake?
It's funny, like when lockdown happened and people, were forced to stay home and people were reading a lot. And we had a longtime friend who had been interviewed in the magazine and had advertised, and she told me, it wasn't until lockdown that I really read Razorcake. I always thought it was cool, but I never really sat down and read it. And you know what? I really like it. And I'd known this person for like a decade and been in constant contact with them. And I was just like, well, I'm glad you finally got around to reading the magazine. That's great.
So you think life slowed down a little bit enough for people to actually give it the attention?
Yeah, and I think, we were offering a connection that people wanted.
Do you see any changes to Razorcake that you'd like to make in the near future?
Hmm. Um, I mean, we're gonna, I don't know. I mean, I think we're doing a good job at the moment with what we got.
Yeah, you seem like they have a really good formula. It's very inspiring.
That's good. Thank you. There will be a change with our yearly donation drive at the end of the year. We're kind of pivoting, uh, putting a focus on a whole different aspect, but it's kind of pretty boring.
Yeah, so your fundraising has changed over the past couple of years. I've
Right.
noticed as I read some of your past issues, some of the things it looks like it didn't stick, but it looks like you were having some fun. Can you talk about some ideas that you had to
Yeah,
raise funds that maybe didn't stick?
yeah, there was a lot of so we do a yearly donation drive, and there used to be like these incentives that we'd come up, and this is like us like hanging out like on a Saturday trying to think of incentives that people would donate money for. So it's like, if you donate $1,000, Todd will get this tattoo. And we're just like, oh, who knows? Maybe someone will give us $1,000. And then his wife was like, all right, but it has to be like on your back because I like never want to see it. Like, we were really stupid stuff like that. What? It was it's so in every issue of Razorcake, there used to be a hidden message, and the message was F you, Dale. And it's just like this kind of like, it was this joke that we just had for a long time, and it would be hidden in every issue. There would be a F you, Dale in there. And Todd was like, if you give me $1,000, I'll get F you, Dale tattooed on me.
What part of Razorcake do you have the most fun writing?
I've really grown to like writing the editorial. It's like at uh it's the beginning piece right here. Um and like someone referred to it as the pep talk one time, and I think that's like a good way to describe it because it's kind of just like your chance to in 600 words to like talk about some real stuff, how it applies to us, and just like a message that you want to convey to the readers about persistence and just like keeping going and stuff. And it's like it always, it will always relate to current events usually, maybe. And it's just a really satisfying thing to write. I always feel good.
What do you think are some of like a big obstacle that most zine makers meet that might cause them to stop making the effort?
Lack of support. I mean, luckily we figured out a way to not have to really um, sell razor cakes. Like there's still subscriptions, uh, but we don't do like wholesale anymore. Like I'm not trying to like ship 4 copies to record stores all around the country and then like chase down those record stores to send me $8 anymore, which was like a model that we were doing for years, which was like always such a headache and reap such little money. But it's just like we had no, it's, we didn't know what else to do. But we pivoted away from that, and now we do like a sponsorship based model where people will sponsor a local record store to receive copies to just give away. And so it's kind of inspired by like public radio in a way. where like listeners of public radio will donate a certain amount of money and then the content is free. Uh, does that make sense? Okay, good. Because sometimes I'm like not sure.
So lack of support. So has there been a moment in Razorcake's history where you felt like you don't have the support to continue, or you've been pretty successful the whole time?
Well, the thing is, okay, so zines and independent print died off in like the mid to late 2000s, right? Like there was there was tons and tons of zines at that time that just disappeared because maybe the internet, probably. Um, I started working at Razorcake in 2006, so I've only ever known this like post die off print world. So I've only ever known like the struggle of it. Like people talk about like the golden years where it was like profitable and like Tower Records was buying like 800 copies of every issue and just like signing checks away. And I'm like, I've never known that. I've only known the hell. I've only ever known hell.
Do you have any words of advice or a pep talk, a little editorial for other people that are out here making zines or want to make zines that maybe feel a little beat down?
You know, it will never be about the money. Like as long as you're meeting new people and making new friends, like that's you're winning. Like I don't know, um, like I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say. I think it's special that way. There's the connection, and I'm sure that there's you can find connection in any hobby or activity, but you go to a zine fest and you could just like feel it.
Do you think that there's a rebellion in keeping it in print?
Yeah, it's a defiant act. Like it it definitely the most logical response would be to start a website and uh I don't know, get like advertising by Google or something, but it, I don't think it would last very long. It would last about a year probably, and everyone would not see the point of contributing because the thing that people love is getting it in the mail and seeing it and like feeling there's a sense of pride that's different than when you're just like looking at something on your phone.
Can you talk about the way you felt when you first saw Razorcake?
Um, yeah, I was ambivalent. It was offered to me and I said I didn't want it. A merch guy at a show gave me a copy and I told him I didn't want it. And then he said, "Take it, it's free." And then I took it because I didn't want to seem like I wasn't cool.
And then from there, how long was it from you not wanting Razorcake to you now living your entire life as Razorcake?
It was about 4 years. Yeah. Yeah, so I was like 18 when I got that.
Oh wow, okay. So what was the turning point? When did you become when did you go from ambivalence to you're all in?
Well, I think I just took it home and I was just like I was just blown away by the bands because I wasn't really familiar with them, but they all seemed like so cool. And then um I just felt like the interviews were so interesting and smart, like these long form interviews that are pages and pages long, where it's these wild, crazy musicians telling these like wild stories. And I was just like, I was like, this is incredible. I have to get into this. Like,
So not like Teen Beat where they talk about their favorite ice cream flavor.
right. Or just like Rolling Stone where they complain about being famous.
What are some of the long running sections of Razorcake other than music reviews?
Well, we do a series called One Punk's Guide that's pretty interesting, and we've been doing it for a while. Where like a writer will take a topic that isn't punk in the by any definition, but they feel like there's like relatable aspects of it, Um, and so does what's a recent one? And it's just been all over the place at this time. It's like One Punk's Guide to uh silent films. Oh yeah, I can rattle it. Like someone did One Punk's Guide to Silent Films, One Punk's Guide to Poetry, One Punk's Guide to Science Fiction, and they just take these incredible little interesting pieces of information. Yeah. No, go ahead.
Well, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was just going to open it up for audience questions. So we are going to take audience questions at this time. If you have a question, you can write it down on the note cards in your clipboards. Though we did have a lot of early birds, so we already have a lot of questions for you to ask Lindsay. So I will go ahead and hand them off to you.
Oh, I'm excited. Oh, okay. Okay. Is there a change to your editing process when considering online content versus a physical zine?
I don't really deal with the stuff that gets posted to the web, but I will say that if you're editing and you're not printing hard copy, you're not doing the job right. You print to you can only edit properly with hard copy. And so I'm the final eyes on everything. So we have a few editors that will edit like the digital Word documents, and then someone will lay out everything. I'll lay out like a lot of all the reviews and stuff, and then we'll print out hard copy of the whole magazine, and I will read the whole magazine on printed paper with like a Sharpie and a ballpoint pen, like making notes and stuff. And like when you edit digitally, you just don't see it the same way.
Yeah. Okay. Has platforms such as Patreon allowed punk and fringe bands to thrive, in your opinion?
If they are, I don't know about it.
Does technology and streaming allow more people to find fringe and punk bands or hinder the discovery?
No, I would say probably like YouTube is probably the place that most of these bands are gaining the most attention right now.
Does the music industry complex read and follow Razorcake?
Um, I mean, I would guess no. They're probably not reading Razorcake now.
Do you have somebody that's like a celebrity that's mentioned Razorcake before that was a big deal?
Um,
Like Weird Al? We've made it. Weird Al mentioned Razorcake.
I have there, so- every once in a while. Oh, a funny one. Has anyone seen the show that was on Hulu called This Fool? This Fool? Chris Estrada. Uh, it's like a funny show. It was on Hulu. It's like a, popular sort of mainstream show. And he like intentionally put like an issue of Razorcake in the show. And someone was just watching it and they were like, "What the?" But I've talked to him since then. He's a professional comedian in Los Angeles, and he was just stoked to do it, and he's a really nice guy.
That's Chris Estrada?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and Razorcake was an answer on Jeopardy one time.
No way.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
And I was out of town, and I got an email through the website, and some guy said, and it's someone I don't even know. I don't even recognize the person. They said, "Hey, I can't tell you anything, but you might want to watch Jeopardy tomorrow." And I said, "Well, why? I'm out of town and I never watched Jeopardy ever. I don't know how this is even going to happen." And he didn't even respond to that. And then, yeah, I got the text of like a photo, and it was on Jeopardy, and we lost it. Yeah.
They didn't get it.
They did not get it. Was a weird question. It was obviously written just to like give a shout out to Razorcake.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody infiltrated Jeopardy.
Yeah.
So if nobody got that answer, does that mean that you're still punk?
Yes, we are. That is our obscurity cred right there.
Okay, can you tell us about the values of Razorcake? What ideas are important to you or the magazine? We touched on a lot of it, but
Yeah, I mean, honesty and fairness and just treating people right.
people over profit.
Yes, exactly.
Have you ever had somebody that you worked with where you had to kind of smack down and say, no, that's not what we want here at Razorcake?
There's been a lot of that over the years. You know, what's like 10% of the people will cause 90% of the problems. I think that's something people say. It's true.
Well, yeah, that's part of the editor, I guess, right? That's the hard decisions that you have to make.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
we have a question about your poetry.
okay.
What's your process for writing poetry?
My process is it usually starts with a single line that I'm kind of that just comes into my head and I'm intrigued by, and then um, I'll just kind of mull it over for a few days until it gets longer and longer, and then I'll sit down with my journal or at my computer and flesh it out. Reading it in front of people at open mics and readings is uh, really increasingly feeling like that's like an important part of the process and something should never go from just my head to print.
Who is Daryl? Do you have a mantra?
Um, gee, if I can't think of it, I probably don't. I'm guessing.
You don't have any like an affirmation that you say to yourself over and over again in the mirror every morning?
Should I have one of those? I should. What's yours? That's a good one. That's a good one. Um, Born, no. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Um, Probably a lot of things. A lot of weird things. I'm just, born to be wild.
Yeah, let's talk about the way you were raised, I guess. So were you raised in like a punk house, or is that something that you developed in rebellion?
Yeah. I mean, I was raised by public educators. They,
That's pretty punk.
my dad says that once I discovered punk, I just kind of raised myself. And I was like, oh, I didn't feel like that. But, just in the typical suburban middle class public education, etc. And just a desire to get out, see what's out.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that Razorcake is still public education
Yeah.
in your own way.
I mean, definitely a lot of our contributors are teachers, uh, public educators as well.
So what was it like now to become part of a magazine that you admired? Is it something that's a source of pride for you? Or does it feel more like a job?
No, I mean it's a big part of my life. Like I was actually planning on not staying in LA when I moved back and Todd offered me that job. I really was like, oh, I should take this job or else I'm probably going to regret it for the rest of my life. And so, no, it was good. It was a big thing.
How do you balance your own poetry and writing and making music with stewarding other people's music by editing?
I mean, I, you know, I like to give back. I like to celebrate people. I like to focus on people who are doing great work and champion them. And, nothing should always just be about yourself. Like, you think you should spend some time hyping other people up and pumping them up.
We have some questions about funding.
Okay.
What role does fundraising play in Razorcake and your position as an editor?
So we do like the yearly donation drive at the end of the year, which is pretty crucial at this point to getting the space sponsored. And we also get grants from the city and the county and the states. And I think there might even be a national, like an NEA check coming down the line. I mean, I'm always like, oh, I'll believe it when I see it, but I'm told that this check is coming.
So has it always been a 501c3 since you started, or was that part of what you did as spearheaded that?
It happened very shortly before I got there, but I'm the one who started the yearly donation drive.
And that gives you access to grants and state funding, federal funding?
No, the donation drive is like individual grants from people.
We have somebody who wants to know, since you said there wouldn't be anybody succeeding you for Razorcake, are you immortal?
Yes, I'm pretty sure.
Well, then the burning question and the last question that we have from the audience is, what is an immortal skincare routine?
Well, the trick is to sleep at a bunch of random people's houses and use their nice lotion that they have. It's
Do you take
you smell it.
donations?
You smell like a different thing every day. It's great.
Does anybody have any extra in their purse or on their person that they can donate?
Well, I think we're staying with someone tonight in Gainesville, so we'll see what kind of lotion they have.
Well, really, that was all questions I had and the questions from the audience. So we really appreciate you making the trek all the way from LA to here in Jacksonville. There's a big interest in zine making, so we're very
Great.
excited to have you here.
Yeah, happy to be here.